you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're talking with Randy Zimmerman of Arrow Comics. How you doing?
I'm doing good, John. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you had to refresh my memory, but we met on Nerd Bacon a week or two ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I enjoyed talking to you. So, you
Yeah,
know, I got to say, us comic rack owners got to stick together.
that's right.
Yeah. So, what's you doing? What's going on? Let's talk comics, or do you want to talk nonsense and drama and start fights and whatever you want. I'm easy.
Nah, let's not talk drama. Let's talk comics.
Yeah.
I
Hey,
was I'm a comic artist since the mid '80s. I'm editor in chief now of Arrow Comics, but I was there when Ralph and Stu started Dead World and Realm, and uh, I did Tales from the Anniverse with Susan Van Camp, who went
oh,
on to
cool.
do a lot of magic card work. And I was their art director for quite a few years, and things, thanks to the black and white bust, kind of went down. And I still kept into alternative and independent publishing, and knocked my head against the wall a couple times trying to break into the corporate comics and didn't like it. So found it much more rewarding to work on my own stuff. So that's what I did. That and commercial artwork. So I
Oh,
did a bit of commercial sequential artwork. I try to do it whenever I can.
oh,
Ads
cool.
and spot illustration, cartoons, caricatures, that kind of thing. So
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. I file all the information away for.
yeah, worked for Caliber and Antarctic and knew
Oh,
Gary Reed a little
that
bit.
comic
And
from all
Gary
those
was
companies.
really good and nice to me, and nicer than I deserved at the time, being a wet behind the ears, snot nosed kid, you know, thinking I knew everything that there was to know.
Oh, I never thought I knew everything. I'm totally aware of how much I
Oh,
don't know. And that's about most things.
yeah, there's a lot you admit, that I admitted. At least the older I got, the less I knew. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's a,
yeah, yeah.
just a big comic fan. I've got I now podcast on the Indie Comics Network. I podcast with Luke on Nerd Bacon, and I do two shows on the Indie Comics Network. One Friday morning called Comics by Night, where I've got Russ Leach and Glenn Fleming from England and Whiskey from Canada, Ontario, and we sit down and look over great old comics by the
Oh, nice.
masters.
That is that
Right
sounds
now,
awesome.
yeah, right now we're going through Two Fisted King.
Oh, wow. As embarrassing as it is to admit, a guy that brags about my comic book collection, EC comics are something I just totally missed out on. What would you recommend for a
When
new to EC?
when I first started, again, wet behind the ears as a kid in high school, I used to go to Skill Center half of the day for my school because I couldn't stand being in school anyway. But they had a commercial art
Oh,
course where they taught commercial art, so I took that. Got to talk to a couple of guys there. One of the guys his dad had an extensive EC collection, and both of them were huge EC fans. And of course, I was a Marvelite and a DC
yeah, me too.
fanatic, and I'm like, those comics ain't nothing. They're nothing, And it's not like the Captain America and Superman and all of that. And they just kind of laughed at me and set me on my way. And then I stumbled across the Russ Cockrum reprint books, these great hardcover books. I don't know if you're familiar with these. But when Bill Gaines emptied his vault, Bill Gaines had all the originals sitting
Yeah,
in a
he
vault.
he took a copy of every comic for himself. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he had all the original art. They went through and shot all of the original art before they put it up for auction. And then Russ Cockrum went through and printed these beautiful hardback books and slipcase volumes and all that.
It's
I,
awesome.
I first got Weird Science and then built out from there, and it really kicked off my love for not just for EC but for comics, uh, all kinds of different comics in general. So I just became a sponge and just started reading and gathering
What do
anything
you
that I could.
recommend for me to pick up?
Any any of the EC books are great, and they're all highly recommended. If you like science fiction, you're going to want weird science, or weird fantasy, or weird science fantasy. If you like horror, you don't get better horror comics than Tales of the Crypt, Vault of Horror, and The Haunt of Fear. Any of those books are just phenomenal, and they're all All of them are very simple, short 7-page stories, just like a spirit section,
Right.
with a beautifully self-contained story. You want to learn how to write a beginning, middle, and end. Read a bunch of EC comics. Find reprints. Get them. However.
Like I said, I'm embarrassed to admit. I'm looking over here because I got a bunch of hardcovers stacked over there, and I'm trying.
Yeah, it's so rare to see an EC book at a show, let alone one raw that hasn't already been slabbed.
I know.
I was at a convention a few years ago, and a guy had a whole row of them, and it was like they were glowing. It's like, holy crap, dude! Look at this. This is incredible.
Let me ask you, since you brought it up, what's your feeling on slabbing comics?
I'm not a fan because it turns them into a trading card, and you can't read them. But I understand.
You became best friends.
Yeah, thanks. There are some books that need to be preserved. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. Just make sure they're all reprinted right so that you can read the interiors. You know, if I had an Action one, I'd slab it.
Right. Yeah.
In a heartbeat. If I had a Amazing Fantasy 15, I'd slab it. But I wouldn't, if I had a full run of Spider-Man, it would really be rough for me to want to get any of them slabbed so that I can sit there and still read it. But I went through and collected all of the essentials, all of the DC Showcase Presents, and all of those. I've got book racks back behind here on top of all of the clutter that's on the other side of that blanket. Or that other side of that sheet.
Never apologize for clutter. Us comic book clutter.
Oh, dude,
we got clutter everywhere.
It's a mess. It's a mess. There's 30 years worth of back issues of stuff I did, and I met my wife while I was retailing at a comic shop. So she's a heavy reader. She doesn't read as many comics as she used to, mainly because of the quality of the books.
Oh my God! If my wife was into comic books too, I think.
I knew I had.
My house would collapse like a black hole.
Yeah, I knew she was a unicorn. That we went out our first date. She had a son that was 5. I had a daughter that was 5. We were going to take them bowling. She kept coming into the comic shop, and buying books because her ex-husband got her into reading comics. She used to read everything that was superhero. Then she jumped over to Vertigo and was reading all of those. And she was at Zenoscope and reading all of those. And now she's got her favorites, Hellboy and a few other ones, ElfQuest.
Hellboy, I love Hellboy.
Anything of, but other than that, she's she pretty much sticks to her paperback books anymore. But when we decided to take our kids bowling, that was the excuse. She was attracted to me, and I wasn't looking for any relationship at that point because I had just come off of a really bad one. And we went out. Our first date was Beetlejuice. We went to see Beetlejuice at the theater. That's how long ago it was. And I was moved in within a week. It was just done.
So I take it you liked Beetlejuice.
Oh, yeah. It's a good movie. And you look back now and you see the stuff that's coming out now. And I'm at this point now where I'm looking back and going, those 80s movies were incredible compared to the quality of the stuff. Even though they're CGI now, most of the modern movies that are coming out can't compare to those 80s movies.
About practical effects.
Yeah.
Like the original Star Wars movies with little models and everything like that still look better than even the prequels, which was all computer generated.
I was a senior in high school when Star Wars come out. I read the reviews I went to see the movie. They said it was a good popcorn movie. Right. So I stood in line for matinee opening day. I was there in line, bought a big tub of popcorn, sat there to watch the movie. The theater at that point was already jammed. I mean, there were no empty seats.
Right.
Soon as that Star Destroyer come overhead, my jaw hits the floor. And I'm watching this whole movie and everybody's cheering. And when the Death Star blows up, the guy behind me jumps out of his chair and goes, yeah, and everybody's clapping and applauding. And then I look down and I see I got a full tub of popcorn sitting there between my legs. I hadn't even touched it. Once that Star Destroyer went overhead, I was like,
my older brother took me. Crazy. I was in 3rd grade. So talk about who was the target audience? It was just like lightning bolts hit me.
Yeah.
A boy in 3rd grade. And my older brother, he was just like, John, I got to take you. Like, he was excited. He was watching me through the whole movie. And I still have memories of scenes that weren't in the movie. Like, I don't know, did I get like a special thing, or was my imagination kicked in?
I have that with Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Really?
Yeah, because I saw scenes. I must have seen a early theatrical cut before they trimmed it way down, because I swore the Trimble special effects were twice as long, and there were other little scenes in there that the next time I went to see the movie wasn't there. And I'm like, well, where's the scene that this and this at? What's going on? And then I saw a director's cut, and they were all in there.
You know, remember they released the Battlestar Galactica pilot, the original one with you know, what's his name, Lauren Green.
Yeah,
They released that in the movie theater, and I swear to this day, there's scenes that only was shown in the movie theater. When you watch it on TV, that they're not there.
I don't doubt it at all. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I only saw it on television, so I didn't get to see it. I didn't get to see it at the theater. I wish I had.
There was a movie theater around the block from me, like right by it. You know, I'd stop at Howie's Candy Store and I'd pick up my comic books, because this guy Howie was he was never young. I think he was born an old man. You know, he I mean, stationery stores. Where do you live?
Where do I live? I've always lived in the Mid-Michigan area.
Okay, did they ever have station? Because this is such a
No.
New York Jewish thing. Stationery stores. It was
Bodegas. Bodegas were
bodegas took all
new
over.
word to me until a couple of years ago. Yeah.
You know, bodega is a Spanish deli, and here's the rule: it's not a bodega unless they have a cat.
Okay.
If they don't have a cat, it's a deli. If they got a cat sitting there on the shelf someplace, then it's a bodega. But
there you go.
But a stationery store, it was an old New York Jewish thing, and it's like the closest. If you're outside of the area, the closest is in the Little Rascals when they go in, and there's a scene where they're buying candy with buttons, and the nice old ladies give. That's, you know, but stationery store, they had comic books, they had cigarettes, they had lottery tickets, they had literally, like, I'd go there to buy school supplies. It's like anything that you forgot when you went to Howie's and you picked, and it was just a kind old Jewish man. Like, he was like a Will Eisner character.
Cool.
And I swear to God, do you remember in not a Contract of God, a Live Force, when the rabbi was yelling at I assume you read this book, A Live Force.
I did, but it's been so long ago. I've been meaning to get back and read. I've got them. I haven't read them in decades, literally.
The little kid is sitting there worried because the rabbi's going to hit him because he didn't practice. And then the rabbi's wife comes out. She's senile. And the rabbi gets embarrassed and he gets up and he tells the kids to go home. And the little kid goes, hey, did you see the rabbi's wife? She's crazy. And the kid who was saved from the beating goes, all I saw was an angel. Oh my God. Every time I see that, I get verklempt. You know, I get teary. But that's what it was like in Howie's. I don't know if it was his mother or if it was his wife, but she would come out in her underwear, you know, and he would just be like, take whatever you want, kids. And we were like, oh, Micronauts, comic book, Star Wars, you know, but whatever. He always liked me, I guess, because I didn't make fun of his I still don't know. But anyway, I digress. Okay. So I'd go to Howie's, and then next stop was the movie theater. And for $2, Star Wars played every day. So Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica pilot for years. So I'm not even joking. I must have seen both of those in the movie theater like 30 times, you know, and every time I was amazed. And so
first time through, I saw Star Wars 25 times. I kept count. We all kept count back then. How many times have you seen that movie? 25. Really? Yeah. Holy crap. I've only seen it 10. Well, you're beyond.
I probably saw it more, but I just say 30 because, you know, whatever.
Well, I was
100 times people challenge you. You say 30, they're like, okay, he kept track.
Yeah, I was right out of high school though. I was trying to date and taking dates to start, you know, out to a theater. There wasn't anything to see except Star Wars. So, and most of you can always tell how compatible you were as to how well the date took to the movie. So.
And you know what's funny? It's, as much as it was a phenomenon, I remember there was like kids who were like, I'm not seeing that. You know, there was like a whole like the cool sport guys were like, that's like vague stuff. You know, I'm not going to go see that. You know, there was like a really big harsh backlash. But nowadays everybody loves Star Wars. But there was a big
everybody's seen it.
Guy, you know, maybe you remember, but there was like the sport guys and the nerd guys, and there was a solid Berlin Wall between the two. And you know, like I used to hide my Dungeons and Dragons. I used to hide my comic books. You know.
I was always comic book guy. So I got a picture of myself working on a piece of art in my high school yearbook. and underneath the tagline, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Randy.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I look at like my life. It was like before Star Wars, after Star Wars.
The most fandom does.
Yeah.
You know, that's our age, you know, that has that gray in their beard. Yeah, yeah.
And then I remember the prequels came out. I was living in Albuquerque at the time, and I was teaching at a school, and the woman that I taught with, her sister was in a wheelchair, and she wrote. I never even heard about fan fiction. This girl wrote fan fiction, so she was excited to see Star Wars. So we had to go up to Santa Fe to a special movie theater that had wheelchair access. Remember, this was
okay.
The 90s, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So we drive opening night to see whatever it's called, the Phantom Menace, and
you
know, I was joking that we were in the Millennium Falcon because this van had to open up, you know, in the wheelchair for her to come down, and they waved us to the front of the line. You know, I felt bad, but they weren't going to split up the party, you know, and so we're in the front of the line, and Doogie Howser, you know, Neil Patrick Harris comes walking up, and I guess he thought they were going to he's like, hey, is this the line for Star Wars? And I'm like, yeah, it ends back. Like, I didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, and I looked at him.
Yeah,
him, but I was
lines in the back. Yeah.
I was like, get to the Doogie. You know, he wasn't cool yet. You know, if had I known later on, I would have. But at the time, he was just Doogie Howser. So he walked back. And then I remember we sat to the movie, and I got to say, the first scene, I was like a little. Well, first off, we sat in the movie theater, and people were in costumes. People had plastic lightsabers.
Wow,
and I felt like a little kid. I was like, oh my god, like, you know. Like I felt like the bucket of popcorn was this big again, and I was all excited. And this girl in the wheelchair was like practically in tears. And the opening scene came out, and I'll never forget when that weird alien says, "They sent Jedis. We are not going to survive." I got chills. And then Obi-Wan, they stuck the lightsabers through that door, and I was like, oh. And then they land on the planet, and Jar Jar Binks, Misa, and boom, it destroyed the spell. And that was the moment I was done with Star Wars.
Really?
I had a fake smile plastered on my face because I didn't want to upset this girl in a wheelchair. You know what I mean? And so afterwards, I'm like pushing the wheelchair and smiling. And then we get to think, she goes, that sucked. I was like, okay, good. I've been waiting 30 years for that. That sucked.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I don't want to hurt her feelings. And that was it. I was kind of done with Star Wars at that point.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, at least it was Lucas then. I mean, had I known then how bad it was gonna get, you know, I would have savored it, but whatever. So
there you go.
I've always been, you know, we always have 3 Star Wars movies is the way I look at it.
Yeah. We got 3 Star Wars movies, 3 kind of Star Wars movies, and then everything else.
Yeah. I always joke that scene at the end of Return of the Jedi when they're Leia's in the that was the last scene of Star Wars. That was it.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
There was nothing else after that.
They jumped universes after that pretty hard. Yeah.
Pops is in the. Thank you for popping
Pops.
in, Pops.
I know, Pops. Hey.
So I don't know. I just find it funny to all these people fighting about Star Wars. It's just like it's like fighting about an ex-girlfriend. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I wish her well, and I have no interaction with her anymore. You know, it's just it's the past. Let it go.
I hear you.
We still have Paris, like as a
exactly right. Casablanca. Yep.
So let me ask you: you were a Marvel fan as a kid. What were your comics?
Marvel, DC fan, a little of everything. We had a whole neighborhood comic collecting type club. I was into Avengers and Defenders because at that point the first Avengers Defenders war was going on.
Yeah,
I had a neighbor who was into Spider-Man, another neighbor who was in Captain America, and we'd get together on Saturdays and read each other's books.
That is awesome. That is great. That is like the all-American childhood right there. That is awesome.
Yeah, we didn't get the early Marvel cartoons. The nearest that they came out of was a station in Detroit. Every once in a while, you could pick it up with a good antenna. You know,
is this the one with Captain America throws his?
That's exactly the one. Yes. And then one of the local stations started showing them early in the morning, and I was there, so I got my comic education off of those books. And then later on I realized that they were originally comics. And what really got me into it though was my parents wouldn't allow me to have superhero books comics when I was growing up. So I studied, I read everything in the library. I knew all the characters. I saw everything on TV, Batman, Adam West, that kind of stuff. And we were able to watch those, but we couldn't collect comics because they were too violent, according to my parents. Well, in the meantime, I'm reading up on everything, and I'm reading everything else. And my favorites were, the Carl Barks Duck books. I was buying the Walt Disney Comics Digest at that point, and got a Twilight Zone Comics Digest.
Oh,
And my mom ended up getting a hold of it. And in the middle of the book, there's a story where a guy makes a deal with the devil. And she said, look, I'll make you a deal. You take this digest. I know you bought it with your own money, but if you take it and you throw it in the fire, I'll let you buy superhero books. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that weekend we were over in, I was raised in a small town up in the northwest corner of the county called Montrose. We drove over to Chesaning. I hit the local drugstore rack, Secret Origins #1 and the Legion of Superheroes reprint book #1 were the first two books I bought. And I remember that well. And then Marvel Team Up #6, which was Spider-Man and the Cat.
Okay.
Those were my first actual superhero books. But and then after that, I just went crazy. I just bought anything that I could get my hands on and traded for anything else. And yeah, got it. Got
my first comic. I had two older brothers and I had two older sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I still have, and so there was always comics in the house.
Yeah.
The first comics I bought was Fantastic Four 186 with Fantastic Four. They fight in Claw, and then Reed Richards turns into the Molecule Man.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think it was Thor 286 with Walt Simonson doing the cover, and Thor's smashing the destroyers. Is it any wonder I'm the way I am with two wonderful comics like that? I was hooked. It was like crack. I bought that comic book. I was like, and I never stopped. I remember maybe waned once in a while, but I never stopped.
Remember stumbling across a used copy of New Gods #2 and freaking, because there's all of these characters and all this stuff going on, and just really, it just blew my mind.
Right. Yeah.
I hated Kirby when I was young, because he was always doing covers, and I hated that Kirby cover. Decent art on the inside, that's okay, that kind of thing. But I didn't come to appreciate Kirby until much later on. But the New Gods stuff, New Gods and Eternals, just blew my mind. Just amazing stuff.
Did I talk with you about that already? About my story arc with Kirby?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Because it sounds like you and I have like the same exact thing. It must have been our age.
Right about the same time. Yeah.
May I ask you your age? I'm 55.
No, I'm 10 years older.
Okay, so
almost 10 years old.
You were in high school and Star Wars came out. Okay,
the biggest influence on me, I'll tell you, was Walt Simonson and Archie Goodwin's Manhunter.
Oh, that was so good.
Ran in the back of Detective. I ate that up. I love that strip. That's one of my favorites. That and Killraven.
Yeah,
Warrior of the Worlds.
Yeah. One over here. It's stacked. It's over here. It's so good. That's like an amazing comic. Hey, Fabrizio's here.
The best. Hey.
Kirby, it's like everyone starts liking Scotch later. Like, yeah.
There you go. Yep, that's exactly.
I don't know if you're familiar with
Frank Robbins, the same way. Invaders comes out. I'm like, what this guy's drawing so goofy for? And then later on in life, I'm collecting. I'm trying to find all of them, because the artwork is so stylized and so great that have to have it.
Was another one I didn't appreciate in my youth.
Up until a few years ago, they never even bothered to reprint this stuff. You could find a copy of the Human Fly for $0.25 in the quarter boxes, and that's how I got my set of Human Flies. It's a quarter at a time.
Do you know Fabrizio? He does a comic called Horace H. Hoover from Alterna Comics.
No, I know of Alterna Comics though.
There's 2 issues of Horace H. Hoover. I can't recommend him enough.
Cool.
Not only is he a great semi-human, but he's a great comic book creator. And we coined the phrase: if things get mixed up, it's been Fabritzed.
There we are.
Oh, but what I was saying about
alternative comics have been so regional for so long. It's such a great thing that we've got, podcasts and internet and all of that. And one of the good things to come out of the bug is we all started talking to each other online.
Yes, yes.
and we got
White
to know
metal and this, and
what
I'll
we
make it a
did.
comic
Yeah,
book. It's a positive thing that came out of the coronavirus.
one of the few. Yeah,
One of the few things. Yeah, and buying a house, I had to get out of Queens. Things were getting like oppressive.
I got a nice little souvenir there from COVID. Yeah.
Oh, what you got there? Scar?
Yeah, nice scar from the respirator.
I
I was on the respirator for 6 weeks, ended up dying twice and coming back.
My God.
Had double pneumonia aggravated by COVID Delta.
Oh my God.
Yep. They have no idea how I survived it.
Oh man.
I don't either. I was drugged at the time. They gave me, apparently I put up a big fight before I went on the respirator because I don't remember anything before until I woke up in the hospital in the bed long after.
Like that 6 weeks just didn't happen as far as you're concerned?
Oh no, it happened. I dreamt all sorts of crazy dreams.
Oh my God.
I was going to write a book, but it's such a rabbit hole for me. And it was it put me in a really hard mental state that the wife just told me, just stop working on your COVID book and start doing regular comics again.
Did it look like Kirby Crackle and everything?
Oh, it was crazy. I went out to the West Coast, and I'm not lying. I went out to even though I didn't leave Flint, I went out to the West Coast on a steam engine, suspended upside down in a black spider web. And I had a nurse behind me telling me she was giving me a bunch of stuff for whatever. I'm giving you this for your blood pressure. I'm giving you this for your sugar count or whatever. And it didn't register to me because I was on a Halloween tour with Hart Fisher, who I know. He was conductor on that train. And we were going out to the West Coast for a contest that I won. And they shot me out of the smokestack all covered in black grease paint with fake horns on, so I could come out laughing like a demon. That's what he wanted me to do. So that's what I did. And then from there, I traveled up the West Coast, even though in my head, I never left.
They gave you more than high blood pressure medicine.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, they did. The list was a half a page long. It was crazy. But I don't know if it was my imagination that saved me or just my being too stupid to die. The doctor came by after I woke up, the big doctor of the hospital, and said, I had to come by and see you because you're not supposed to be here. Says most people that get into your situation, they all go one way, and that's the way that we expect them to go, and you didn't. You went the other way. It says, and we don't know why you did it, but you did it twice. And then he patted me on my shoulder. I couldn't hardly move my arms at that point because when you're on the respirator, everything atrophies. So you don't have any muscle. All your muscles are just gone. And he said, congratulations, my boy, you're alive. And I never saw him again.
You and Luke got that in common, huh?
Very much so, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Luke was down for 8 weeks. He died once. I was down for 6 and died twice.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I come out with a scar. Luckily, I got everything back. Luke still has problems with his left side and can't play a guitar like he used to or sing like he used to. So I think they trached him through his voice box. But I've got a scar there as well that gets I can feel it every once in a while, like when I'm coughing, or especially
there's a word for that.
The trach scars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got another one in my stomach where they tube fed me for months after I woke back up, and I didn't get back to normal until I was cleared and started eating real food. They were worried I was going to inhale stuff down into my lungs, and I kept telling them I've been mucusy ever since I woke up and been swallowing my mucus. Those muscles are fine. Give me some food, and they wouldn't do it. They were feeding me on large goop, like half-gallon tubs of goop that they were suspending and shipping into my stomach. It's great. And with a lot of drugs too. So hey, they kept me happy and docile. And that I've had a lot of crazy adventures while I was down and never left the hospital bed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Got buried, did a survivor game. They stuck me in a fetal position in a large capsule that had a plunger on the front of it and pumped it full of gas. And then they rammed me up against another capsule, and whichever capsule didn't blow up won.
You remember all 6 weeks of these dreams?
I went through that twice.
And could you hear people? Could you hear the doctor?
Yeah.
This guy's goner,
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I heard all sorts of stuff. I dreamt all sorts of crazy stuff.
You hear your relatives come in and go, I guess I'm never getting the $7 that he owes me back.
Well, I won a Survivor game where they buried me, and that Taylor Swift was actually sponsored. So when I woke up, I told the wife to check the bank account because that $250,000 should have been in there. And I'll see, they were all, patting me on the head and going, no, you've never left. You never left the area.
You literally thought you were doing this stuff, or
I did. Yeah. It was as vivid to me. It was as real as you could, as if it actually happened, and it still is. It's like as if it's still there. It's been a while out in Montana.
Well, maybe you did. Maybe you
did all sorts of stuff.
And one of the songs is about you. That son of a bitch.
They are.
My heart. Randy.
We joke about it all the time. Yeah, I watched her get married to Zac Efron. So,
oh God,
just nuts. There was the one time of clarity. I remember being in a hospital bed. I wasn't in a room. I was kind of like in an open area. Everything back at that point with COVID was nutty anyway. There was a whole row of vending machines next to me. And I laid in bed all night and watched some silly documentary on the History Channel about the New York crime family. Just a marathon of that same show over and over again. And I was too weak and couldn't move to change the channel of the TV. I saw enough NCIS New Orleans to last me the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Done. If it comes on now, I just switch it off. Switch it off or over.
Oh man, I don't even know what to say, because COVID for me, I worked, I got into an argument, I'm a construction guy, and they make the announcement, this new thing, COVID is coming out, and the next day they're like making you wear a mask. I'm like, dude, I'm carrying pipes. I'm gonna have on. And here's the funny thing: was 2 weeks prior to COVID, I was working 13 stories below Manhattan, underneath the subways, because remember, I'm an electrician, so there's electricity pipes down there and everything.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm all the way down in the bedrock. I used to joke that I was an underdweller.
Okay.
And we're carrying pipes. You have to take ladders down, carrying. And there was a painter. He was wearing a mask because when they paint, they have they gotta wear it for particulates.
Probably with the double.
So he's wearing this mask for his 8-hour shift, and he take the mask off, and he had a heart attack and died on the steps, and nobody knew, did he die right away or did he linger there, because nobody found him, because it's such a labyrinth to get. So and next they're telling me to wear a mask. I'm like, I'm not going to be that freaking painter, like the guy wore a freaking mask all day long. You know what I mean? Like, I said, there's nobody around me. I'm the only person around me is the mole man. There's nobody around me. If you're afraid of COVID, stay away from me. And half the time I'm on a 12-foot ladder. I said, it's physically impossible to be near me. So they branded me a troublemaker, and they sent me on the George Washington Bridge.
Wow.
And I worked with 2 other guys as punishment, and we stayed there for 3 years. I mean, it sucked because it was freezing cold, and then in the summer it was
hot.
It was but we worked, a lot of other guys were laid off, so it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Cool. We drove right to the bridge, we didn't have to deal with the subways. So like the whole COVID, I would wake up at 4 a.m, driving to work, not a car on this. It was creepy driving through Manhattan. There's nobody and cars weren't moving. So we got the same parking spot, and there was cops hanging out because we had a porta potty, so the cops would came out, and use our bathroom. And I used to tell them, if you got to do a number 1, I get out of 1 ticket. If you do a number 2, I get out of 2 tickets. That was the standard joke every day. So COVID, I kind of didn't think it was bad because it just, and then I got it. I got to admit, I got a little scared because I never had it before. And they sent me home, and I had just moved. So me and my wife were painting. So I guess I got we painted this blue that you see behind us. We painted this wall. We joked that there's COVID in the paint because so I guess I didn't get it. I didn't get a bad dose. I don't claim to. That's
good.
So I kind of blew off COVID until Luke told me his horror story, and now you're telling me your horror story.
I totally blame the hospital for me. For me getting it as bad as I did, and I was under such the original protocols where they stuck you on the respirator as quickly as possible, and they shouldn't have done. I don't think they should have done that, but that's what they were told to do, so that's what they did.
Yeah,
So
or in New York
what?
here, they put the COVID patients in the elderly homes. I
Yeah, yeah.
tell me that wasn't planned because
Hmm.
you know
It's
what
same
happened.
thing here in Michigan. Same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I went from a hospital to a convalescent center for a couple months.
yeah,
So and they're still dealing with Delta COVID there.
they
So
were
yeah.
they you know the elderly were being paid by the state, and then
Yeah,
the
yeah.
federal government was giving out money for everybody. That so tell me that they weren't killing off people that were making costing the state money to get federal money.
I
You
think
know,
they were getting paid by the body going out. I think
yeah.
that's why
So
the doctor of the hospital had come by and make sure I was still alive because like
yeah.
missed that one. So I'm
How you
like,
doing,
yeah,
man?
okay, done.
Good to see you
Hey there.
again. I was on his channel a month or two ago. That he was a good guy.
Yeah.
So let me tell you.
Anyway, comics.
Yeah, let me tell you my Kirby story because you
Do
said
that.
when I was a kid, you know, Marvel Comics to me was John Buscema. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, and I didn't know his name or anything like that. I was just a kid. But that
Sure.
when you said Marvel Comics, boom, it was John Buscema's on. And then every once in a while, I'd get this old fashioned, boxy, ugly women Jack Kirby comic books. You know, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't like this. And I remember I got a job. I must have been 16 years old working in a comic book store in Boulder, and the owner, rightfully so, he knew his comics, you know, and he was talking
Mhm.
about Jack Kirby and everything, and so I started to respect him, but I didn't like him.
Okay.
You know? And then after a while, I don't know what it was. It was just like this guy's great, you know, to the point where like I remember through the course of I worked in that comic book store on and off for like 4 or 5 years. So by the end of my tenure at the comic store, I was like I became like that annoying comic book. Well, you don't like Jack Kirby? Well, then you don't know anything about comic books. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
became that
Yep.
douchebag. So, you know, but I didn't like him at first. It took an appreciation. That was old people's comics.
Mhm.
You know, and the funny thing is I loved early Ditko. And
Mhm.
then at that period, Ditko came back to Marvel and he was doing like a Machine Man and like,
Space Knight. Yeah.
Rom, and I hated it. Yeah, I
Mhm.
remember he did a Micronauts annual, and we're like, "Oh, a Micronauts annual! Oh, it's Ditko," you know.
Mhm.
So, and I didn't realize it was the same guy that I loved his Hulk and Spider Man and Doctor Strange. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
his heart must have not been in it. He must have,
No.
you
He's
know.
doing it for the money. Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
like, I got his the first appearance of Squirrel Girl in that Marvel Super Specials or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
You know.
I saw some of his pencils for Rom Space Knight, and they're just basic shapes piled in on top of one another.
Yeah, what do they hire? They Terry Austin to ink it to make it.
Aiken and Garvey.
Oh yeah, those guys are like house painters over people. Yeah, they just swath over anybody's pencils, you know. Yeah. Who I forget who it was, but somebody. I think it was for Atlas Comics. It was Ditko did
the Destroyer,
Morlock 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, 2020
by Bertie Wrightson.
Yeah,
and Bertie Wrightson was just like, I just want to work with Ditko.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Badge of honor. Well, all of those atlases were great though.
Yeah, you know, I remember
the Vampires, just phenomenal title.
Yeah, I remember looking at on the spinner racks at the 7-Eleven, and I had like a visceral disgust because I was a Marvel zombie.
Okay.
I didn't like DC, and I was just like, what is this Atlas? Now I'm buying them all. Anytime I can find an Atlas comic, I just find them so charming and like they're a product of a bygone age. You know,
Yes.
You'll never see comics like that again.
No, especially not with that lineup. Holy crap. The people they started the careers and furthered the careers of so many great people. Just wow.
It's funny. I got Larry Lieber's phone number.
Okay.
You know, inviting people on my chat. I just cold called him, and we actually like struck up a friendship. We talk every couple of weeks.
Oh, cool.
And he was like, John, I don't remember Atlas Comics because I can't tell you any stories about Atlas.
Wow.
It just came and it went, and my heart wasn't in it.
And only lasted 4 or 5 months at most. They were lucky to do a third issue on most of their titles. Yeah. I remember the first time I saw Simonson was in High Adventure magazine, I think it was called. He did a samurai story in there, and I'm like, who's this guy drawing so crazy? And then I caught him in Manhunter, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Another one. I remember reading the Hulk with the Rocket Raccoon drawn by Mike Mignola.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy sucks, you know. And now I'm one of the biggest Mignola fans, you know.
It's this Mignola guy. Well, a lot of that was the plastic plate coloring too. Didn't help things. The little garish looking, over bright colors that they had back in that period. It just, yeah, kind of painful. My big thing was walking into another drugstore in another nearby town and running across the Spirit reprints from Warren magazine. Yeah. That's how I found the Spirit. I was hooked right as soon as I picked up that magazine. That was it for me. I need to know everything I can about this guy because these stories are incredible.
Yeah,
and just
for me,
loved them.
I the kitchen sink press black and white reprints.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
To the point now, I bought those I'm looking over here at them. I bought the hardcover collection.
I got all the archives. Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm like, these are supposed to be in black and white because that's that was my first exposure. You know?
Right. Yeah.
It looks weird in color, but oh my God, same with you. Like I got the Spirit, and I was like, this is, how do I not know about this?
Yeah. Same here.
Yep. I was like 17 years old, and like comic books was like my identity. How do I not know about the Spirit? Yeah. Like I did a deep dive into Will Eisner, to the point, like I remember talking with my dad about the Spirit, and he didn't know what I was talking about.
All in color for a dime.
Oh, what's that?
It's the original. It's my original book. See, it's all tagged up and beat up, and this is a book on comics history by Don Thompson and Dick Lupoff.
Oh, Don Thompson from the magazine Comic Buyer's Guide.
Yeah, each chapter covers a different character. This was my textbook when I was growing up. I ran across it at the library in hardcover. I ended up buying a copy in hardcover. Probably 2 years ago or so.
I didn't know this existed.
When this popped up,
for a dime. Forgive me for looking at my phone, but I got to write it down before I forget.
All in color for a dime, and then there's the comic book by Thompson and Lupoff, and that had a lot of other people writing in different chapters for different characters. But this was advertised in the back of a Warren magazine, along with a history of the pulp magazine, and by Ron Goulart. And I ended up buying both of them, and I've still got my copy. It's still got my original address from Montrose sitting on the inside cover because it was a book I was never going to part with. And in the middle,
hardcover for $15 off of eBay.
There you go. In the middle, there's all of these color covers that are just phenomenal. Had a big impact on my youth. That and the comics, the history of comic books in America by Les Daniels.
Okay.
Whenever I find a copy of that in hardcover, I buy it, but I never hang on to it. I got one copy. I never hang on to the extra copy for very long because I give it to somebody. And I say, you want to know about the history of comics? Boom, here you go. This is everything up until about the 70s.
What's the name of that book?
Comics, The History of Comic Books in America by Les Daniels. It's got Banana Man on the cover, of all things. And he goes through and he covers all of the comics history, covers the underground movement, and he runs those strips uncensored. There's a lot. It's not made for kids, but I ended up running across it at my local library when I was a kid and read it and just literally absorbed it. There's a whole chapter on ECs. There's a chapter on Warren magazines and all of that. And just, I never, again, it's a book that I refer back to all the time because the more I learn, the more I end up relearning off of these books. Yes, it is. That's exactly it.
Thanks a lot, man. You just cost me $30 coming on my damn channel.
I don't know what to tell you. You will definitely read them and thank me for it. I'm telling you, they're well worth it.
Chuck Dixon was on a couple of weeks ago, and I every Wednesday, it's one of my favorite things. Is I have like an hour commute to work, and I listen to his Wednesday podcast every one, and I say, at coffee break, I spend $20 on comics because of your damn podcast. and Chuck goes, "What did you buy?" And I rattled off Walt Kelly's Pogo, a Wally Wood collection.
Yes.
A couple of novels from detective writers from 50. And he goes, "I didn't make any money off of any of that."
There you go. Yep.
I love Chuck. Just cuts right to the chase. Thanks.
Funny.
But I call that the $20 show. Every Wednesday I listen to Chuck Dixon. It costs me $20.
It's another $20. Yeah. Well, I cost you 30, so here's a high point.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
I hope my
Yeah,
wife.
if you run across a comic book, pick
she's
that
not
up too.
She would have stomped on the ceiling.
Would you?
Oh man.
But yeah, that was my education before I could even buy superhero books. I was hitting the library, reading every book on superheroes I could find, any books on comics that I could find. It just sparked my love of history, which I didn't really appreciate until much later on, you know. And then, like I said, I still go back and refer back to those books. I keep this handy all the time, and I think I have the Les Daniels book sitting up here too, actually.
I had the hardcover.
Yes, I do. It's right there.
I had the hardcover Steranko.
You'll love this. I got the Steranko history of comics too. Yeah, those are.
It was like
books.
6 volumes.
Not that I was aware of. There's only 2, but if there's 6, I'm definitely missing 4.
You know what's funny about it is when I moved, I told you I moved to New Mexico, and I took all my comics and I put them in this. We had this like crawl space in the basement, and I bagged and boarded all my comics. But a few comics, there must have been holes in the plastic, and they literally turned to mushy powder.
Yeah.
And the Steranko was because I didn't have bags that big enough for them. I just put them on top of my long boxes.
Oh man!
And 7 years later, when I exhumed them, it looked like drugs. It looked like powder, you know. And I'll never forget my McFarlane Spider-Man 300.
Yeah,
there's a plastic bag and it looked like cocaine in the bottom, you know.
Oh wow!
So there must have been a hole in that bag, but luckily, I'd say about 5 comics got destroyed.
On my EC volumes, I left them down in the foyer for a while, so all of the spines are bleached, sun bleached on a lot of them. But they're still great; they still hold up, and I'm never going to get rid of them. So.
Yeah.
And there's so much great stuff in there, just phenomenal.
I just bought the. You mentioned it before. Now my brain is filled with holes. The Uncle Scrooge.
Yeah,
I bought
the Walt Disney Comics and Stories.
Yeah, I bought a big stack of hardcovers. You know, because I was never interested in any of that. You know, it's always been superhero comics, and as you get older, your taste change. Like anything war comics. I never read war because to me as a kid, war. Like comic books superheroes could only be done in comic books. It wasn't until just very recently that they could do a pretty good superhero movie. You know, the special effects for a superhero was beyond the budget of TV and movies as a kid. But war movies you could do. So to me, a comic book was an inferior war. This is my kid logic. I'm not
sure. I'm following you. Yeah,
and westerns was movies and TV because as a kid. TVs and whatever, it was perfect. So I never was interested in reading westerns and war. Now, I'm reading a lot of these old DC westerns and these, the Fleischers of Jonah Hex are outstanding.
Oh man, yeah, you're just discovering that. Good on you. Yeah, that's a lot of great stuff there.
I can't believe that. Not only did I miss it, but that's quality writing and. Till this day,
especially if you want to learn how to write pulp, hard action, fast-paced stories. Them Fleischer, that's right, Michael Fleischer,
right.
Jonah Hex's. You can't. I used to go through and do body counts on every issue because there would be 20 to 70 body counts. On those stories. They were amazing. You're sitting there going, wow. And as a kid, that was my Call of Duty. That was my Grand Theft Auto right there.
I picked up the
Jonah Hex
special, like the death of Jonah Hex when he got stuffed and put in. I was like, how are they selling this to kids?
Yeah.
And another one of my things is they didn't pander to kids.
No.
They wrote that, but I was a 52-year-old man when I read that, and I was blown away.
Yeah.
I'm like, I couldn't wait to get online and talk about it with people. So
that's just as they were starting to figure out their audience. especially DC, because it took them a little while in the superhero stuff to, and the when the Code Authority kicked in, they really went down as far as their reading level goes. They ended up hiring all the guys that used to work on Captain Marvel to work on Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman. That's why you have all these crazy whimsical stories with Batmite and Bat-Hound and Mr. Mxyzptlk and all of that.
That's why I never liked
through.
Silver Age DC. It was, to me, it was too silly and whimsical.
Well, see, now you need to go back and read them now, because there's a whole different, you'll have a whole different outlook.
Probably right.
Especially those old, the old Fawcett Captain Marvels. Fawcett's an amazing.
I always liked them. For some reason, it just, Captain Marvel just seemed like, I don't know. I think Captain Marvel works best in that self-contained, childlike, whimsical world.
Absolutely does. Yeah.
Captain Marvel that it works. Like,
yep.
If the more realistic you bring Captain Marvel, and he's Captain Marvel, not Shazam, everybody.
Right.
Will always be, it strays, and there's something like to me, like, I wanted to like the movies, and they as the first movie,
not the same.
The first movie I liked in the fact that they didn't pander to kids. There was some scary scenes with those demons killing everybody in the board. I turned to my wife. I'm like, this is like a whip. So I was kind of impressed that they didn't dumb it down for kids, but at the same point, they kind of missed Captain Marvel, if you ask me. But
yeah, they did.
I was just happy it was good. The second movie, I don't know, whatever.
Honestly, I haven't watched it. I haven't seen the second Shazam movie.
It's better than most of the DC movies, and that's damning with faint praise, because I'm not a fan of the DC movies. I think DC movies fundamentally missed their characters.
Yeah, I wasn't really aware of Captain Marvel, but I bought Shazam #1 because Superman was on the cover pulling a curtain back, and there was Captain Marvel. Yep. So I bought Shazam #1, sat and read it, and I loved it. I ended up buying the entire run of Shazam.
Yeah, it was C.C. Beck did the art for that.
Oh yeah. And Beck is amazing. I mean, you want to talk about a minimalist artist that knew how to strip everything right down. He said comics are color and lines, and that's what it was. Just basic shapes, colors, and lines. And that also made it fast for him to be able to draw, and for everybody else to be able to copy his style. But them Fawcett's, when they were out, them Captain Marvel Adventures and Wiz Comics and that, they sold in the millions.
Yeah, my mother
Captain Marvel Adventures used to come out every other week and still sell 4 to 6 million every issue.
My mom said when she was a little kid that she's like, I was Mary Marvel. Like
I bet.
Times that she wouldn't answer to other names. She was,
there you go.
She was quite,
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying about the Jonah Hex, I wanted to bring up this point is I'm a big fan of the all ages comics, which I think is something that comics. This is one of my topics that I talk about all the time. I think we're failing that, Marvel and DC and even us independent people, like, that when I talk about those Jonah Hex comics, those were for all ages. Those were sold to children.
Yeah.
But when I read those, I'm like, this is a perfect example of kids aren't stupid. And don't pander to kids. Like the first Star Wars movie, the second Star Wars movie.
I don't think they were primarily written for younger kids, middle-aged, teenage, mostly boys. They did a demographic study just as the direct market kicked in. The average reader was 25 to 55, mostly white, mostly male.
Right. I remember that.
And that's what they catered to for decades.
Right. I remember every time they did some sort of study, I was the target. 46. They were like, the average comic book is a fat Italian Irish kid from New York. Oh, that's me. I'm the I was the exact middle. And I remember reading this, like the average comic book is a white blue collar worker who 40 years old, and I was like, I'm a white blue collar worker 40. Like I just ate. But the thing is, nobody. I was the bottom floor. There was nobody underneath me. As the elevator went up, there was nobody else. Like my nephews don't read comics.
Yep.
I got nieces and nephews that never even saw a comic book.
A lot of them probably read manga though.
They all read. I'm not even joking. I got I'm one of 7 kids. Every one of them has at least 5 kids, and now those kids have kids. So we get together on a holiday and they're like, oh, Uncle John's the weirdo who likes comic books, stuff like that. And they all talking about One Punch Man. And I don't even know who these guys are. And,
Sure.
and they're shocked when I don't know who they're talking about because they just,
I tell everybody, you can see the quality level between corporate comics. And I'm not saying alternative or independent comics. That's a whole different ballgame. Yeah. But corporate comics and manga, because the kids are reading manga and they're not just reading manga, they're reading manga from right to left.
Right.
So that's how they don't want to read the modern stuff coming out from the corporate. That's why we as alternative publishers have an uphill battle, because we're more likely to catch a reader who's read manga, a new reader that's read more manga than they have corporate comics at this point.
It's funny that you said that the kids will put in the work to read wrong, to be more authentic. You know what I mean?
Not to be entertained.
Right.
That's the whole thing. That's what they're looking. Just like when we were growing up,
put in the work if they feel it's worth it. And I never thought about that, but I do know that my niece wags her finger at kids who read manga the American way, and she also gives you one of these if she finds out you watch dubbed anime. It's supposed to be subtitled.
Everybody's got their level of purism out there, but nothing matched the old. When I was growing up, manga was just coming in. We were catching, or not growing up.
First off, I just want to say hello, Dale A. I don't think I've seen your name before. Thank you. I didn't want to ignore you.
Way back when the streaming services or the movie channels were just starting up, you got Captain Harlock and Galaxy Express and that kind of stuff popping up. That's what really got me looking at Japanese comics or manga. And there was a manga series out there that they printed correctly. They flopped the artwork and then so that you can read it left to right, about an assassin called Golgo 13. Yep, not meant for kids.
Yeah, I got that. That's one of the first manga that I ever got.
Yeah.
I remember my friend told me, he goes, this guy makes the Punisher look like a wuss.
Phenomenal book.
Like, all right, I'm in.
Yep. Just love, I've loved that kind of character ever since. Somebody who's totally in control, knows exactly how the situation runs. If you read the British comic strip Modesty Blaze, it's almost the same thing, only with a couple different antagonists or protagonists. They're like Mission Impossible. They're completely in charge of the situation. They know everything that can go wrong, and they've made a contingency plan for it. And it's just a great
I always
strip.
Like Golgo 13 because what did the guy says? He says like 2 words in each book. He's a character, and he doesn't even speak that much. It was really cool.
He's a very quiet individual, but he's very good at his job.
I guess when you're hiding in a closet with a rifle, talking in Chris Claremont pose isn't going to help.
Yep. True.
So tell me about Arrow Comics. We've been talking for an hour, and we barely talked about Arrow Comics.
Arrow Comics started back in '85 by Ralph Griffith and Stuart Kerr. It was always created as a creator-owned company. Everybody that worked at Arrow Comics owned their own IPs. So Ralph and Stu did their own, wrote and created Dead World and Realm, which were their 2 big books. Sue and I did Tales from the Aniverse. Mark Bloodworth did Night Streets. Ralph also did a superhero title called System 7 back then. And they ran for a few years back in the 80s and got caught in the black and white bust when everything contracted. When everybody thought that they were going to do the next Turtles, and it turned out they were actually doing the next Samurai Santa, that kind of stuff. And they went down for a little while, and then in the mid-'90s, after I had self-published a few other things, did another run of Tales from the Aniverse under Massive Comics. I talked to Ralph and Stu and asked if I could take Arrow Comics over again using the same philosophy. So I printed from like 96 to 2003 as Arrow Comics in black and white through Diamond, and was constantly butting my head against Diamond and driving me crazy. And we did about 60 individual titles. We did a little manga back then. We did an anthology book. We did Dark Oz. I did a modern updating of the War of the Worlds novel, that the first arc of which Caliber printed, and they still have collection of available over on Amazon, and a number of other titles with a number of other folks. And like I said, we kept button heads with Diamond, and eventually I got fed up with them, and I was in it with Scott Moore as a publisher and backer. Scott is a retailer up in Saginaw, and he's had the longest running comic shop up there in the Saginaw area, and which is still around today and running really strong too. Thank goodness, knock on wood. But Arrow shut down about 2003. I started freelancing, got a bad taste in my mouth for Diamond, and stopped looking for direct market stuff. I did another round trying to pitch proposals to not professional, but to corporate comics, and butted heads with a couple of the editors there, and just decided that wasn't for me. So I got into the apparel printing business, and had my own business there for a little while, printing T-shirts and sweatshirts, that kind of thing, which I still do.
That?
I still do a little bit of it today. Yeah, I've narrowed my client list down pretty hard because my main love and focus is on comics. But while I was doing that, I got involved with a political paper, and though I'm not a very political. Well, I try not to be a very political person, but everybody has their opinions. Yeah. But I became their cartoon editor at the paper. Once I saw they were doing a freebie paper, because I'm from the Flint area. Flint's known for the Michigan and Flint Voice. That was where Michael Moore first got his feet wet as far as activism and political stuff goes. So I was there. I was the cartoon editor for the Uncommon Sense for 3 or 4 years. And I saw we would do, like once a year, they'd allow me to do an issue that was focused on comics. And it was advertiser supported. It was free to readers. And excuse me. Anyway, I loved doing it. And those issues were really popular. So when that paper folded, a couple of years, about a year after that paper folded, I started thinking I should do my own comics paper. That way I can still do comics. I can still draw what I want to draw. I can put in there what I want to do. So I went around and started Flint Comics and Entertainment, which was a 20 to 28 page newspaper that folded up just like you ever see the Wednesday comics? I probably have an example of it here if I look hard enough. I got it.
Are you talking about the DC Comics Wednesday comics?
Yeah. Let me see if I got a copy of it.
Yeah, it folded up like the New York Times.
Yeah, here's a copy of Flint Comics, and it folded out. Had advertising. We ran as many coupons as we could.
Sandwich looked delicious. You can't tell I'm hungry, huh?
and opened up different articles, different comic strips, comic book stories, anything that I thought anybody would want to read. Considered ourselves Flint's favorite bathroom reader for about 10 years. We ran through 100 issues, and it took about a year to really catch on. And then it caught on pretty well, I thought. We were doing real good until the Flint water crisis happened, and the leaded water chased off all the mom and pop's advertising dollars because everybody was trying to survive during that period. So I moved through 10,000 copies per issue on that paper, and it was right within a 25-mile radius of my county. 10,000 copies. We built up a great readership of real loyal followers. Had a great cast of folks that were contributing to the paper. Had a guy who did single panel strips.
How often did it come out?
Monthly.
Okay.
It was monthly until about the last year and a half, and then I jumped down to bi-monthly because I was having a hard time paying the bills. We had a couple of our anchor sponsors had new marketing executives come in fresh out of college that decided that print was dead. And that pretty much crippled us really good. The local community college had advertised with us for the first 75 issues, and they always took the back cover. They were always dependable for a certain amount of money, which covered about half of the print run of the paper. And they were great until the marketing director decided to retire. The new person that they hired was fresh out of college, and they were sure that print was dead and they weren't going to support a local paper. So even though it was a local community college. But after about 100 issues, the wife convinced me I had to stop because I was dipping into my savings, and I was doing commercial work in order to help cover the print run. And I ran an ad for my commercial art business in the paper, and I had more business than I knew what to do with at that point. And it got really crazy there for a little while. I was doing more commercial work than I was doing comic work, and comic work was really what I wanted to do. So I ended up shutting the paper down after 100 issues, and I got involved with a guy who was podcasting and started podcasting, and he introduced me to crowdfunding and started looking at crowdfunding and studying it and watching all the YouTube videos and getting to know what everybody was doing, get to know the folks that were crowdfunding, and decided to get into that. And then this guy had come up with a wackadoo distribution deal that he assured all of us that was solid, and it wasn't, and that kind of went south. But in the meantime, I had brought Arrow Comics back out, and Arrow Comics was going again. I was doing Hero Bot Zero and a couple of other titles that I thought was going to be part of this distribution deal. That, you know, we were supposed to go into a big chain store and be available on a monthly basis. So I had geared up and started running on a monthly schedule on, like, it was actually 2 titles, but it was more like 4 titles because the titles were bi-monthly and they were swapping out. We'd do 2 1 month, 2 the next month. The number 2s, and then the number 2s of the second set, and then the number 3s, that kind of thing. And I went down on COVID. And then when I got back up and started getting back around, realized the guy was just pulling our leg, to put it nicely. And we had already invested at that point, getting us the first month's worth of books printed. So a lot of us were into it for thousands of dollars. But before that happened, Luke Stone had approached me about doing hybrids as an Arrow Comics, and as an Arrow comic, and I'm like, yeah, sure, run the logo. You know, you completely own the IP. You are that creator. You're responsible for the finances on that book, but you can put the Arrow Comics thing on it, and we'll cross promote as much as we can all of our titles. And that's grown out now to a half a dozen titles, which is probably going to become a good, I would think, maybe a dozen by the end of this next year, because we've got a lot of people coming up on board. I've got I'm doing a lettering a book right now from Russ Leach. That's adaptation of Robert E. Howard's first sword and sorcery story that's in public domain. That's called The Shadow Kingdom. Features Cull and Brule are in it. I broke it down, and Russ is just having a ball doing the artwork on it. We're talking different formats and looking at our different options, and that's going to start up. The crowdfunding campaign on that's going to start up in March.
Cool.
Then I'm looking at collecting all of the Tales from the Aniverse information, because Sue is back and doing paintings again, thank goodness, and back healthy. And she had a rough go of it for a little while. Not as it's really her story to tell, but it was pretty tragic there for her for a little while, and pretty touch and go. But she's back and working on artwork again and doing more paintings and stuff, which is really good and great to hear. So we're going to do a Aniverse Omnibus and a Varsel's Vixens, which was a group of female warrior characters that are all serious funny animals is what we call them. Not furries. We were out there before furries started. Thank you. But great, serious funny animals. Exactly. Yes.
That's one of my favorite comics of all time.
What a great book.
It is.
Stan's such a great guy.
I've been trying to get him on my channel to talk, but
I'm sure you could do it. Just stay on it, you know, because he loves to talk. I started carrying around a sketchbook to the shows after a little while, especially with my disgust with Diamond, just to remind myself to be a fan. You know, it's so important that if we love this industry, that we talk positively about this industry and that we promote this industry positively. And we have to do that amongst ourselves, like your show here does, where we're sitting here just talking comics, how great they are, how fantastic.
I forget who I was just talking to this week, and they, you know, we were having a pleasant conversation, and I said, first and foremost, I'm a fanboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fanboy. You know, I remember like in the 80s and 90s, fanboy was like a derogatory term for comic book, but I'm a fanboy. You know, if John Byrne was to cross the street right now, I'd be like, oh my god, that's John Byrne. You know, it would be like, I don't know, Bruce Springsteen to other people, but
Sure.
oh my god, you know, and I don't. When Chuck Dixon came on my channel, I if you watch that interview, I was like this for the first 10 minutes. You know, and then finally he was just like, calm down, you know, I'm just, you know, Mike Barron. I couldn't even talk to Mike Barron. I was like looking away, you know, how am I who am I to talk to Mike Barron? You know?
I can understand that completely.
You know, so
my big story is
a fanboy, and I want to talk comic books, and I'm enjoying the hell out of this talk. This is exactly what I want. I'm talking comic books with a guy who's got his boots in the ground, and you know, the whole life has been comics.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to talk about this guy is fighting with that guy. These guys have got secret time.
No.
You might as well be Mark Brooks in the Whisper Network.
Yeah.
That was my rant. Sorry.
Why do you want to troll when you can talk when you can talk about how great things are? Let me tell you my story. First time I met George Perez.
Oh, sure.
Tales from the Universe #3 had just come out. I was in line for 45 minutes to get books signed by Stan Lee, and back then Stan would sign 3 things for free. So I had first editions of the Marvel Masterworks. I had him sign X-Men, Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four, right? So I go to hand the books to him, and I had brought some of my books along with him. I was going to slide them to Stan and you know, tell him I'm doing comics, and you're one of the reasons, and you guys up there that have been working at Marvel for workhorsing at Marvel are really an inspiration to me. George Perez was sitting next to Stan because he wanted to visit with him. So I went up there and handed Stan those books, and he signed them, you know, gratefully. We had a small talk, and I knew that was George Perez next to him, but I wasn't going to bother him. And I handed him handed Stan a copy of Tales from the Universe 3. George jumps out of his chair, stands up and goes, "You're Randy Zimmerman. You do Tales from the Universe. Your stuff is great." How do you handle that?
Right.
So I'm sitting there going, I like your stuff too, George.
Yeah. What do you do?
You know, what do you do? It's crazy. But yeah,
your head goes like this.
You couldn't deal with me the rest of the day. I sold a ton of books, and just you know, I was on cloud 9 the whole time.
I went to a convention. I got Wonder Woman #1 signed by George Perez, and you know what's funny? I don't remember it. I fanboyed so bad. I have 12 hours of my life missing because I was like so excited. I don't to the point I opened up Wonder Woman #1 to do a video on it for my channel, and I was like, oh my god, I got this autograph. Did I buy this on eBay? And then I was like, oh my god, I met you. You know what I mean? Like I realized, like that's how much of a gushing fanboy I am. If I had a show on this channel right now, I think I would make a jerk out of myself. I just go. I like you. Yeah. I like you, Walt. You know,
I like your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
When I met, I was in a show in New York and got to get a couple of things signed by Robert Crumb. It's one of the last shows he did before he left. And Harvey Picar was there, and I got to talk to them mainly because Jim Lee was also there, and he was an e-ticket attraction, and I was interested in getting that ticket and standing in that line when I could just walk up to this table here with this grumpy Harvey Picar sitting there, and Crumb just wanting to talk to anybody. So that was a good. Crumb really good experience. Oh yeah,
that's great.
I had a couple issues of Zap that he signed. Yeah,
wow, that is great. That's a good story. I took my wife to a comic convention, and I forget who it was, but there was like lines around the block. I think like Grant Morrison, you know, and I love Grant Morrison, so I'm not saying anything bad about Grant Morrison, but I can't stand being on lines. I believe it or not, I'm an impatient Italian New Yorker. Go figure. Okay. You know, I can't stand even my own family. When we go to weddings and it's time for the food, I get up and I walk around and I rub my head because I'm like, you know, this is my family members and I want to knock them over to get not that the food. It's just I can't stand being on lines. Okay. So I was walking around, even though I wanted to meet Grant Morrison, and my wife goes, "Look at this old man over here. He looks so nice." And it's Carmine Infantino.
Oh,
nobody at his booth, just sitting there. I was like, this guy's a legend.
Yeah.
Nobody's out. So I had to go over and talk, and I'm glad I did because he passed away not too long afterwards.
Oh,
So
yeah.
but I was like, wow, I talking to Carmine Infantino, and here's an embarrassing, funny comic convention story. I forget who I was online for, but I'm online, and then it's crowded, so the ushers came and made us. So the line is going in front of all the other people's creators, artists.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm standing in front of Colin.
I've been on the other side of that table enough to know exactly how that goes.
Yeah. So here I am waiting online I forget who I was trying to, and I'm standing, and right over here's Colleen Duran, and I'm a big Colleen Duran fan. So I'm like, oh, I said, and she looks up at me, and she must have been like, I'm just gonna not make eye because this is, you know what I mean, like. So I go, I'm a big fan of a Distant Soil. I said, this is a comic that's very personal to me. And she's like, oh, wow. And she started talking, and she's like holding up the comic. And I'm like, I already have them all. Like I should have just bought it. I should have had it. But I was like, thank you. And then I just turned around, and the line didn't move. So I had to just stand there and like not buy her comic.
Oh.
I kicked myself for not.
I bet you didn't at least buy one and have her autograph.
I should have. What a jerk, huh? I'm such an ass.
Oh, like I said, I was carrying that sketchbook around a lot. And the front and back covers are all autographs from folks. I caught Neil Adams before he started charging for his autograph.
Yeah.
Hey, Neil, can I get an autograph? And he's like, okay,
How was he? Was he all right? I kind of...
It really depended upon what time of the, I wouldn't say what time of the month. That's a little harsh, but it all depends on what else had been happening to Neil at the time as to how open he was. Sometimes he was great and he was really friendly, and other times he would just tear you up by looking at you.
He looks like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was at a show in New York and saw him critique. Well, it was that show where I got his autograph. I sat there and watched him critique a kid's portfolio and bring him to tears. Just bawling. You call this an ear? This isn't an ear. An ear looks like this and this. And I'm like, wow, dude, just here's a guy who sees you as like their biggest idol. And you're just ripping him a new hole. It's just crazy.
When I was working at the comic store, I think I was like 17 or 18 years old, and we went to a retailer's convention. So it was only, direct market comic book store.
Okay.
And, people yelling and screaming. And, I remember the big thing was American Flag had strayed, and First Comics was like doing an apology tour. They restarted it with Howard Chaykin coming back. They're like, yeah, how's First Comics? And I just remember there was this girl, and I sat next to her, and she started flirting with me. And I was, I'm thinking I'm Mr. Riz, as the kids say, talking to this girl. And then next thing you know, Neil Adams sits down next to me, and I'm like, this girl looks like the... Oh, and he's just like, oh, you're talking to my daughter. So it wasn't the most pleasant Neil Adams experience, but I can't blame him.
Yeah.
She was older than me. I don't know who the hell I thought I was. Yeah, Neil explained his expanding Earth theory to me. We had a table across from us years ago. Yeah, that John Byrne made fun of Neil Adams with that, right?
I still look at that video every once in a while. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, don't worry. And it's funny because people would say, "Oh, you believe in Hollow Earth," and he would correct them. No, expanding Earth.
Expanding Earth. Yep. Yeah. It's like a pan of Jiffy Pop popcorn just comes out and twists as it expands. Yeah.
Yeah. So I usually end these after an hour or so because believe it or not, I can't really talk to people for that long. It drains me keeping up the
Oh yeah, but you're half awake and running on adrenaline already, so it doesn't matter.
For those of you who don't know, before I was telling Randy that I got up at 3:30 this morning for work. So somebody has to be there first to turn on the generator. When there's a construction site, there's no power, so somebody has to go. So we take turns to get the overtime, and it's my turn. So I'm waking up at 3:30 in the morning, but I'm not going to bed any earlier because I'm an idiot. So I've been like hardlining coffee since I got home, and
can it go through with a fuzz?
I'm crashing now. I just felt it like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, you got a wave. Yeah, I know how that goes. Yep.
Peaks of out. So
Big believer in quality time. You know?
Before I start talking like an idiot and saying stupid things and mispronouncing my words, how do we get Arrow Comics? Let's talk about that.
Arrowcomics.store is the best place to go at the moment. If you go over to fundmycomic.com, you'll find AR13L, which is a book that I don't have anything to do with. That is a great book, phenomenal. The artwork by the great Erica Hodson, and a story by Pixel Trader and script by Piper. It's a great satire of the Little Mermaid, the little crab that has a knife welded onto one of his claws called Stabastion. Yeah, it's a fun book. Now, also over on Fun My,
your Arrow Comics bundles, they look great.
Yeah. That's not the AR13L isn't part of the bundles, but we're just finishing off the second bundle now and getting that in and getting the Fool campaign fulfilled, which should have been done a couple of months ago.
I just got this
Luke's schedule. Oh, there you are, Chrome Dog. Yeah, another great book. That's Luke and Justin. Sweet.
Yeah, both of them are great guys. I had conversations with both of them. You know, I want to put a comic up on Fun My Comic in a. I'm going to say sooner rather than later, because I know when you give a hard date and you don't hit the hard date, people bust your chops. So sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And I might as well show this off. I made this pint glass, Heroic Tales.
Cool. There you go. Yeah.
If you could see that laurel wreath is the symbol for the patriarch.
Cool. Sweet.
So have a beer and don't have beer goggles. Have the male gaze from the patriarch. How's that?
Yeah. Yep. But other than that, you can find books like that I've done. Like, let me get them here. Let me pull out this. I got a couple of files. This is on.
Yeah, Marcus knows me. I didn't drink my Cafe Bustelo today because I wanted to go to sleep. I have a 3-day weekend, and because of Martin Luther King Day, I'm going to spend 3 days judging people by the content of their character. I'm going to be a judging machine for this next 3 days.
There you go. Yeah.
I said that at work today. Everybody just looked at me like, "What's wrong with you?"
Find HeroBot Zero over at arrowcomics.store. That's a character that I created that I do the majority of the artwork of, and
cool.
all the writing.
You write and draw. Yep. Great. That's awesome.
It's a 3-foot tall giant robot who defends his city from large menaces as long as he can do it on the clock. Get time and a half for overtime. It's kind of grumpy.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Wife says he's a lot like me. The second issue's got a Scott Rosema cover, and it's got a few other artists doing short stories in there that I wrote. It's a lot of fun to do. I've got to get a third one done here this year. It's on my list. There's a lot of stuff on my list. So over there is Calico Shard, which is a fantasy title with artwork by C. Michael Harris. It's got a talking cat. It's got an elf here that likes to collect stuff, and a grand old wizard. Let's say a Gandalf type character, a warrior, centaur, and a barbarian fairy as they go through and try to put their world back together. And then I also have a superhero title over there called Paragon that I'm very proud of. It's got a great twist ending to it. It's kind of like what would happen if
my characters.
There are a couple Paragons out there. So,
yeah, I'm just teasing. I know there's one from Bill Black's, right? The FemForce.
Captain Paragon.
Yeah, Captain Paragon.
Yeah. This is just straight up Paragon. It's a superhero that pops up in a city one day, and it's got it's kind of like my version of the Golden Age Superman. What if they were suddenly to appear out today, and what would happen? So cool. It's a lot of fun. It's got a great twist ending to it.
Remember, guys, this is by a man who's been comics in his blood since he was a kid.
Oh, I love this.
You
stuff.
were sneaking off into the library to learn about comics when you weren't allowed to read.
Yep.
I've heard that story a lot from people of our generation.
Yeah.
I guess it was the remnants of that 10-cent plague. The seduction of the innocent.
Yeah. That's just it. The comics kept me sane when I was growing up. I was raised in a very restrictive religion, as you probably figured out when my mom had me throw that Twilight Zone digest in the fire. But that comics kept me grounded pretty much, even though I was reading about all these fantasy worlds. I did talk her into very early on into letting me buy Strange Adventures, because I had to explain to her Adam Strange wasn't a superhero. He was just a guy in a rocket suit. So, and I was allowed to read that book, and because it had other science fiction stories in it.
Well, my parents. Let me just address Dennis. First off, thank you for coming, Dennis. It's always great to see new names. Watch later. That's I got no problem with that. Thanks a lot for checking it out. We're all fans of Randy's.
Well, thanks for being a fan of my live streams. Appreciate you very much. Spread the word, please. So
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dennis. I couldn't read as a kid. I've told this story a few times. I just couldn't read.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about it from a kid's perspective. You're in second grade and you're doing math problems, and then you go home and you play with your friends. You don't just do math.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're not just, hey, let's do math. So that's the way I thought about reading. I'm not just going to sit around and read. Reading was something that the nuns made you do at school, but it had nothing to do with fun or playing with your friends or playing with your toys. Mm-hmm. And then I met Carl and Sean. They were into comics, and again, you always knew the superheroes and stuff like that. I always thought they were cool, but I wasn't going to read. And I remember them giving me comics, and I realized, oh my God, I'm stupid. I can't read this. I couldn't read the comic books. So but like you were talking about reading the manga backwards to us, like the proper kids will make an effort if they find that it's worthwhile.
Yep.
I learned. Exactly. I was in the stupid reading group. I told the story a million times. This kid, Jordan, sat next to me and we shared a textbook. Catholic school back then, we had 13 books for 36 kids. Gotcha. So I'm sharing a book with Jordan. Jordan used to come out of the bathroom with his pants down around his ankles because he didn't know how to wipe his own hiney in third grade. And that's the kid sitting next to me. So I knew I was stupid, sharing a book with this kid. But by the end of that year, third grade, I went from Jordan to this girl, Marianne, who was the girl, when you get a summer reading project and 3 days later she's done already.
Okay.
That was Marianne. That was my new partner. And we're sharing a book with so I was like, kids know who's stupid and who's smart, and now I'm sharing a book with Marianne. And it's all because of comic books. Comic books taught me to read. They gave me a lifelong fascination with reading.
Yeah.
There's not a day the only thing that stops me from reading is this stupid phone. I used to carry a book around backpack and read it. Now I'm looking at my phone. Oh wow, I didn't know that about Gilligan's Island. Like that matters. But
I know what you mean. I do. I watch way too much YouTube. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I don't watch any.
Learn to write from comics and D&D. Yeah.
Yep. D&D.
A lot of us did.
Randy, did you play D&D?
I never got into role-playing games. Susan got into role-playing games really hard, and her and her husband had created Dragon Storm that they did for many years, their own RPG. But I was never into that. I was always into comics. That was always my draw. Yeah. I loved drawing them. I loved reading them. I had to stop retailing because I knew I could do better, and I wanted to go out and do the books more than sell the books. One of my first jobs was working at a bookstore that had a hardcore adult aisle down one side. But they also were one of the first stores to get direct comics in mid-Michigan. So I would get comics 3 weeks early.
Oh, wow.
And go around and show everybody, you like that issue of Avengers? I just got the next one. So that kind of thing.
He dies at the end. But you were that guy ruining the comics.
Yeah, I sold a ton of Teen Titans #1 while I was working at that store. You like X-Men? You're going to love this. You need to buy this. That kind of thing. And I picked up a number of Cerebus #1s.
Oh, wow.
At that point, which allowed me to trade in on a couple of these hardcover EC sets. Some of them were signed by Dave up on the inside.
Oh, I remember Cerebus #1 coming out. I remember Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out, and I passed up on both of them. Love and Rockets I picked up. I don't know why. But that interested me. But like I said a few times before, Teenage Mutant, I had it in my hand, and I was like, you expect me? They're making fun of comic books. They're not taking it seriously. This is making fun of Frank Miller. I'm not reading this. I call that my $180,000 mistake.
Yeah. I don't know where my copies are today, but we shared quite a few conventions with Eastman and Laird very early on, and got that old. Hey, when we get big, we're gonna bring you with us. Like, let's see how that happened.
How were they? Were they cool guys? Nice guys?
back then. They were great. Yeah.
God, that's awesome. That is
Fantastic
awesome.
folks. All of those guys very early on. I remember sitting a table or two away from Robert Kirkman when he was selling Battle Pulp.
Yeah.
You know, though he swears he's never seen a copy of Dead World before. But you know.
I have Dead World, believe it or not.
Yeah. I was the voice of King Zombie. I did all of those letters pages.
I like that. That's another thing. When you slab a comic, you don't see the letters page. You
Nope.
don't see the ads.
Nope.
You know, and I 100% agree with what you said. You take a comic book and you turn it into a collectible card.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Yep. Yep. And again, there's reasons. I understand the collectability of it. I love the people that are out there buying that stuff because that's my blood, you know. That I grew up on.
Comics at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every Sunday, and it started just me doing like a deeper dive into a comic, and it morphed into me showing my older like important key comics. Like,
when do you have that
on Sundays, Eastern Standard Time, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, I run Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Over at the Indie Comics Network, and we're pulling up all sorts of oddball stuff. We're going through Wednesday comics right now.
Okay, that's
over there from DC.
Comics are so good. I really liked it.
Just amazing.
Like, last week on 2 weeks ago on Sunday Comics, I did Justice League of America #1.
Oh, there you go.
And then I compared it to my copy of Fantastic Four #1, and then this week I'm going to do Avengers #1. So I want to keep that up and make it
good for you.
It's going to be my key issues. Obviously, I can't do Amazing Fantasy 15. I don't have it, but you know. Whatever, like I'll do Daredevil #1. I'll do Journey into Mystery I'm doing Journey into Mystery 87 this week because it came out before Avengers.
Okay,
you know, but whatever. So, but
good on you.
You can't do that.
No,
if you slab, you know,
nope.
You know, and a lot of people tell me like they've never actually seen the ads or the letters pages because they got the reprints, obviously. You know, so
yeah, yep.
I feel like but I'm only human. If I could slab a comic and sell it and it's going to change my life, like I don't have to go into this muddy hole and dig for 12 hours. Yeah, I'm going to do
Absolutely.
it. You know, but I'm not.
There's so many great comics out there that are just completely gone, lost to history or ignored, you know, especially during the 80s, during the the original independent movement, you know, Fish Police, Troll Lords, that kind of material that nobody talks about anymore. That was all really great stuff.
I just bought. It's funny that you said that. Like 6 months ago, when my wife and I, we go to there's these retro collectible places around. I don't know what's going on, but there's a whole bunch of them, and they all have back issue bins.
Okay.
And I bought there's 2 series of Troll Lords. I bought them all. I said I must have seen these comics a million times, and I passed up on them. And Fish Police, you know, they were just like 50 cents, $1 each. I was like, I gotta buy these.
Remember Galaxian? There's all sorts of just great stuff. Used to love Icon Devil. Ran for 2 issues by a guy named Spider. It was the writing was the most disjointed but fantastic writing I've ever read. And the book was really pretty. Icon Devil.
Oh, I never heard of it. I got to check that out.
Well, I'm going to do a Sunday Funnies once I get a little time and can run through all of my long boxes because there's a ton of that stuff that nobody has seen or nobody's remembered, you know, it hasn't been around in 20 years. And that's even longer than that, more like 35, 30, 40 years. Just some phenomenal stuff.
Randy, but you should go back on Twitter and announce, you know, this is Sunday Sillies or whatever and put a link. You know, you know, I know Twitter is a cesspool, but if you cultivate it, like I love Twitter because I'm talking to comic book people and stuff.
Yeah.
Now they're getting into this drama that I throw out a grenade and then I turn this way and you know and leave. But,
throw a grenade and run.
Yeah, you know, but you know, because Facebook to me is like a vast wasteland these days. You know,
I feel the same way about Twitter, but I understand using it as a marketing tool. Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Just you know, join us for Sunday Sillies or whatever. What's the name of your show?
Sunday Funnies.
Yeah, Sunday Fun. Perfect name for it. Perfect name for the Sunday Funnies.
Funnies.
I put out a link. You know, I think you know, again,
Sunday Funnies and then Comics by Night on Friday morning at 5 a.m. over on the Indie Comics Network. And most of our viewers are after the show is wrapped up. So the majority of our viewers are sitting there working on their own stuff, listening to what we're looking at and our discussion because it's a bunch of old farts talking comics.
Yeah.
So it's all good fun. We have Charles Santino that pops in. He's used to be an editor for Marvel, wrote some Conan stuff at one point. Glenn Fleming is on there from England. He does a magazine called Comics Unlimited that is really a great 100-page magazine. That also does a independent character called Hatch. And then Russ Leach is over there. If you don't know who Russ is, he's done work for Doctor Who Quarterly and did the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way over in England.
Yeah.
And a number did Batman for Panini, the European market for about a year. Just great talk, great guys, great comics, great discussion. So
yeah. Send me the links. I'll gladly put them on Twitter for you. But
happy to do that. Well, I got to start getting over there and start throwing things around myself. So.
And it don't do like I do. Somebody says something political, and then you respond like a jerk. Ron Mars says something like, "Oh, comics are always political," and then he'll some super progressive thing, and then I got to put a picture of Captain America punching a communist. I'm like, yeah, they were always, and then he blocks me. But I guess you're not coming on my channel, Ron.
Some people, you just can't deal with the. I just like good comics. I don't care who you voted for. You can, and your political opinion can be in your comic book too, as long as it's done well enough.
Right.
If there's 100%. Some quality there. Rod Serling did Twilight. Roddenberry did Star Trek. They were both very progressive, liberal people that did stuff that's totally evergreen and unforgettable.
Yeah,
just
with subtlety and respect, and you know what? They tried to understand the other point of view.
Exactly.
That's what gets me is the baby brain insulting. Like, what a coincidence! Every one of your political views is the perfect, most wonderful way to think of things, and everybody else is an idiot. How am I walking around the world when I can't even understand basic, anything? That's why guys like Jimmy Palmiotti, I love. Me and him disagree, but he's been on my channel a few times. He's an adult who understands this different world. I had Fabian Nicieza on my channel, and about halfway through the interview, he started to realize, oh my God, I'm talking to somebody I disagree with, and you could kind of see fear in his eyes. I'm like, dude, I'm just a hard-working blue-collar union worker. You know what I mean? We should be buddies, but now you're labeling me alt-right.
And way back when. You were 10 years ago,
right?
Everybody did. It didn't matter. It didn't matter who you voted for, as long as you did great stuff and you could have somebody on your show that you absolutely admire. It was a great time because you talk comics,
Right. It's I try to stay out of the drama, or as I call it, cackling. But I'm only human and I'm fallible.
I just don't have time for it anymore. I've got a bucket list that I have to hit, and I know my time is short. So
don't say that. Randy.
I got stuff to do, so I'm going to do it. We're only here for so long, all of us. There's only a small amount of time. We're a blink in the grand scheme of things, if that, just a grain of sand. So we need to get stuff done. We need to leave a mark. We need to tell, and especially right now, I mean, the classic old comics that nobody wants to read or acknowledge anymore. They're like where was it? Cosmic Book News was talking. There's a concerted effort by people up there in the corporate comics to chase off the direct market because they think they're a bunch of misogynistic old men.
Yeah.
The whole ideal of the hero is waning so much. We need to get out there and start standing up and saying, no, this is the role models that you need to be following. Right. This is the stuff you need to read to your kids. Yeah, exactly.
My comic is called Heroic Tales.
Yep, there you go.
The first issue features a character called the Patriarch, which is an homage to everybody's dad.
Yeah, there you are.
This is what if dad became a superhero,
and
cool. My dad was my superhero. I'm a normal, well-adjusted, happy family, and I miss my dad, and I made a comic book with the character who's a father. The second issue is going to have a Chinese woman, son of from China, that they escaped Maoist Chinese purges. You know what I mean? So it's diversity from a guy who on the other side of Comicsgate. Jeez, go figure. Because the world's more complicated than Ron
pigeonholing
and Mark Wade think.
Oh, absolutely. So much so. Yep.
And I don't know your politics. And maybe we disagree, but looks like you're not getting offended because we're comic fans. And
Even if we did, I wouldn't get offended because I'm an intelligent adult.
There you go.
And we're talking what we love, and that
right.
puts us all on the same level.
And I'd have a beer
same mindset.
I hear you, but I can't believe I have it made.
There you go. Yeah, good luck on that. Good luck on your heroic tales, man.
Thank you. And I'm gonna. I know it's Friday night on a 3-day weekend, and ladies and gentlemen, it'll happen to you when you hit your 50s. You want nothing more than, it's a 3-day weekend. I can't wait to go to bed early and sleep.
We're snowed in here. We're having the biggest amount of snow that we've had in years, and they're warning us to stay in. And the wife and I ran out and got enough groceries to.
Did you have to fist fight your way through the supermarket to get eggs and toilet paper?
Not at all. Not at all. But we're ready to stay put for the next couple of days.
You got some comics to read. You know what?
That's true.
If it's snowed in right now and I was snowed in for 4 or 5 days, oh man, I would love it. I got so many comics to read.
That was the thing with the COVID when they had the lockdowns. It's all like, well, we got a lot of stuff to read. Okay. You don't want us to leave, or we can't leave, or whatever. Just leave me alone. And I didn't get enough reading done during that time because I was drawing comics. So
there you go.
The wife, on the other hand, read a paperback book a day. So there we go.
Yep.
Just zoom through it.
I read so many comics. My friends were staying at home. I was working, and I came home, and my wife was working from home, so I had to be quiet. So I just sat in my room and read comics.
There you go. Yep. Heaven. That's what that is.
It's funny. I just said to my wife the other day that I said, when I die, I imagine the afterlife, it's going to be like all my comics that I have eternity to read. That's what I picture heaven to be like. You know what I mean? Like it'll be like my dad's there making sauce. My mom's over there, drinking her Schlitz, doing her crossword puzzle. And I'm like, okay, mom, dad, reading Micronauts, for eternity. That's the afterlife for me.
There you go. Yep. That is heaven. Yep.
Well, as you break everything, but I'm going to go, everybody.
It's my keyboard.
Yep.
Anyway.
Thanks a lot, everybody. And Don Wardy, thank you for showing up. I don't recognize the name, so I always try to welcome new people.
Good show, fellas. Thanks, Don.
And thanks a lot. And I backed. Let's put this up one last time. I backed the Arrow Comics, and you could go to the Arrow Comics store. You could go on my comic and look in for Arrow Comics. There's a lot of good stuff.
There's a couple PDFs up there of old monkey comics. I got a cartoon monkey named Spank that's kind of like me.
Oh, you did Spank the monkey?
Oh yeah, I did Spank the monkey. I'm still doing. I got 40 pages into a history of comics using Spank and a whole cast of his characters that I'm going to finish. I had put it aside when this distribution deal sprung up. That was going to be the book I was going to crowdfund. 40 pages in, I'm up to Wonder Woman, and now I know I can take that and turn that into about at least 50 pages because of the stuff I've learned since I did that. It's just, and the comics history to me is amazing. It's all one great big set of links in a large chain. The previous person's being screwed over leads to the next person's big breakthrough and an advancement in the art form. It's phenomenal. It's a great and fascinating history when you get into it. A lot of screws going on, but there's a lot of advancement too, and a lot of folks, a lot of great lessons learned in there. It's all linked together. If Siegel and Schuster hadn't lost the rights to Superman to the folks who were running national periodicals, of which one of them was MC Gaines. When MC sold his shares and died in a boating accident, the publishing company he was doing, which was educational comics and a little bit of entertaining comics, went to his son, Bill, who decided that he wanted to print comics that he loved. He did the whole EC Comics line like this. The EC Comics run afoul of the Comic Code Authority, and they keep button heads with those guys. Kurtzman goes out to the West Coast, finds a group of artists sitting around the Haight-Ashbury district, and that becomes Underground Comics. Underground Comics evolves into the direct market. The direct market evolves into the independent market, and with the independents, Image spawns out of that. just everything is one great big chain that's all linked together. That to me is really fascinating. And I can't wait to get that book out. That's also on my list.
Who did I just talking to the other day? But somebody, and I didn't know this, but that Jack Kirby originally worked for the Fleischer Animation Studio.
Yes, he did fill in for Popeye.
Yeah, and
he didn't work there for very long, though.
Right, but could you imagine if the Fleischer Studios didn't go under and Jack stayed there, how different the world would be?
Well, Jack left before they went under.
Oh, he did leave. Okay,
he was only there for a couple of days. He couldn't stand it. He had to leave.
Oh, okay. So there goes my theory. Never mind.
Yeah, you don't want to do. You can do grunt work and do fill in for Popeye and make they made a little bit of money, or you can go off and create your own stuff, which is what he ended up doing.
Oh, okay.
Along with Joe Simon. Yeah.
Kirk. Oh, I didn't know this. Kirby worked for Eisner.
Yes, for another short period of time. Yeah, he worked for Eisner and with Eisner for a little while.
Did you ever meet Eisner?
I did. Yes, I got a couple things signed by Will. Yeah. Pardon?
I said, please tell me he was a gentleman.
Always a gentleman to me.
Told me to get out of here, kid.
I'll tell you. Here's my Eisner story. The last time I saw him was in 2003, I believe it was. I was at the Eisner Awards and I was passing him in the hallway. Right. I was walking by. I said, hello, Mr. Eisner. And he stops and he turns and he goes, Randy. And I turned back around and says, Randy, how you doing? How's Aero Comics? And it was like meeting I was meeting George Perez. I'm like, we're doing great, Will. Thank you so much.
Wow, that is great.
But he called me by my first name. He knew the company that I was working for, was familiar with my work. And it made my day. What can you do when somebody does that? And I've got a couple other things signed by him. I've got a first edition of Comics and Sequential Art that he's got personalized to me on there, and a copy of a program guide that he was at a Motor City Con one time. He was the guest, did the cover for it, and he signed it to me and said, best of luck with Aero Comics. Will Eisner. And when I dig it up out of my files, I'm going to scan it and post it up on the social media just to show everybody. But that classic Will Eisner signature with the curls, and just great stuff.
You find out somebody met your heroes. I'm a big Beatles fan. Oh yeah, I met Ringo Starr. He punched me in the face and took my wallet. So that's great that Will was good. Yeah,
he was always a gentleman to me, and amazingly, he knew who I was. That was my biggest impression.
Yeah. Dale is impressed too. Okay, but I you can see my eyes. I'm looking at myself. I look like a sleepy guy. I'm aging.
Sorry. But I told you I can keep you up for a couple hours.
I know. It's funny because Luke said that. He goes, Randy can talk to you all night long. But that's fine. Yeah. Normally I would if it wasn't a work day. But totally Randy, I would love for you to come back and talk. I loved talking about comics. I love talking about the history of comics. I love that you know things that I don't know. And
same here. You too.
I just had a blast. This is good. This is everything that I want to do with this comic. Yep. The fact that I'm making a comic is gravy, but this is the meat and potatoes. This is what I love this. So thank you.
I think everybody should do their own comic, no matter how good you can or can't draw, or how good you can or can't write. You need to go out there and do it. And if you need motivation, go out and buy that Scholastic book, Cool Cat Comic Club, and take a look. Dav Pilkey. I'm telling you, that's where the next generation of comics. You were talking earlier about how we're not seeing enough all ages comics out there. There's a whole fan base growing up off of Dav Pilkey's Dog Man and Cosmic or Cartoon Cat Cosmic Comic Club. I don't remember the exact title. Hardback books are selling for between $10 to $13. But in the first issue of that, he teaches kids how to make a comic.
Oh, that is awesome.
Including the best way to draw poop.
Yeah, so, you got to draw poop
as a kid. Absolutely. Well, that's a whole discussion.
It's important. And I had a comic with me and my friend. It was called Sludge, and believe me, we drew poop.
That's the whole point of the first book. Is the teacher's freaking because the first thing these kids do are ultraviolet and crazy, stuff, and the teacher's going, "We can't do that. That's not appropriate. They can't do that in school." Until she figures out this is their outlet. This is their emotional release.
Are you familiar with? You said before that you're familiar with alternate comics. You know Wolf and Batsy?
Who?
Wolf and Batsy, the alternate comic, the werewolf, and it's by Brian Bow. But Brian
no,
Bow
does not ring a bell.
Oh, it's a great comic. I highly recommend it. Great comic. Like I mentioned,
I'm terrible with names and titles anyway. So,
but me and him have been talking, and we were just talking about this. His daughter loves those Dogman comics.
Yeah, yeah. And I got a granddaughter that's really heavy into him.
He says, because he draws. He's obviously a comic book guy, and he's drawing. And his daughter will sit at a little table, and she's making her own comics, and it's inspired because she doesn't read Wolf and Batsy, but she's reading these Dogmans, and she, and he's like, this is great. And Marvel's missing the boat. Remember, Marvel used to have Star Comics, and
I almost got in as an apprentice at Marvel on Star Comics with Sid Jacobson. He offered me the job, and foolishly I asked him how much it paid. And when he told me, and I laughed, I literally laughed in his face and told him, "No way am I going to New York on $9,000. That's not going to work for me."
Yeah, you'll be a guy living in the subway, baby.
That was my professional career, or corporate career, done right there. Over.
Yeah. But thank you again, and please, I come
John
back.
Anytime. Invite me on anytime.
Yeah,
I'm a vampire. I go where I'm invited.
Okay. I invite you in there, Randy. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. I know I said goodbye like 4 times, but this
hope you had fun.
Shows you how much I enjoyed this conversation.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care, folks.
Have a good 3-day weekend, everybody.